In August of 1991, Soviet hardliners attempted a coup to preserve the Union, and it didn't work out as the USSR fell. But what if in an alternate timeline the Soviet Union never fell? Mikhail Gorbachev will be poisoned while at his vacation home by the Politburo, and the Soviets broadcast that he is ill. They state that democracy is non-negotiable, meaning that they would never allow the Union to fall by all means necessary, and the crowds immediately applaud this initiative. The Soviets then sell drugs all over the world to provide funds to Bill Clinton's candidacy for the 1992 U.S. presidential election, and to provide money to Pat Buchanan, forcing the two to be questioned by the FBI. Clinton gets absolutely stoned and asks what money is before being sent right to jail after he said that Escobar's cocaine gave him a better high. Meanwhile, Buchanan is furious at his arrest over the Soviet money. Richard Nixon is then invited to the Soviet Union to advise them on foreign affairs, and potentially to have a sleepover party if he brings American video games over to Moscow for them to play. Although very confused at this, Nixon does agree and comes to Moscow with several arcade games, which astonishes the old Soviet hardliners. Once in Moscow, Nixon advised the Soviets to probably democratize and to try to reach a détente with China, but the hardliners were more interested in the video games. The Baltic states then declared independence, and the USSR disagrees with their declaration. Soviet tanks roll in, forcing a tense standoff that is negotiated by Nixon and Ross Perot so the Soviets will let them be independent. The hardliners are surprised by how well Nixon and Perot mediated the situation, and as a gesture of goodwill, the Soviets claim that they will recall all agents from the United States, including Pat Buchanan, who they claim is their greatest asset. Buchanan, meanwhile, is relentlessly questioned by the FBI as he denies all allegations of being a communist, as the FBI constantly is finding more and more evidence that was planted by the KGB about Buchanan being their agent. As Buchanan vigorously denies all accusations, the Soviets say that he has been a great actor and can come back home to the Union with all of his communist homies. Buchanan then starts using racial slurs to try to prove that he's a hardcore George Wallace supporter, but the Soviet diplomats say that he sounds just like Brezhnev and Che Guevara while talking about the Congolese, and he can come home now. Gorbachev remains incapacitated at his dacha, and as he tries to make a livestream video to the Soviet public, the hardliners smack him across the head and broke his legs. They then claim that he fell down the stairs and hit his head on a table while getting up. Although nobody really believes this, the hardliners don't care, as they thought it was a pretty funny prank. Also, Gorbachev wasn't their biggest problem regarding dissent among the population. The hardliners turn their attention to Boris Yeltsin, who is advocating for the fall of the Soviet Union and to install himself as the leader of the future Russian Federation. So the hardliners decide to gun down Yeltsin in the streets in a KGB drive-by shooting, designed to look like Yeltsin had unpaid liquor fees with the Russian mafia. Of course, this action went flawlessly, where Yeltsin was pretty well known for his alcoholism, and everyone bought the staged drive-by shooting by the KGB pretending to be the mafia. The Soviet hardliners then decide to take Nixon's advice and attempt to reconcile with the Chinese. However, this fails primarily due to Nixon returning back to the United States. And after the failure to reconcile with the Chinese, the Russian liberal opposition claims that there has been a coup in the Soviet government, which was not surprising to anybody as Gorbachev had clearly been beaten against his will. However, the opposition's claims of a coup came way too late to be effective, and people just ignore them. Meanwhile, the hardliners do even more drug dealing to earn more money. And this drug dealing by the hardliners is not to improve life in the Soviet Union. Oh no, the funds here are going to be done only to provide even more funding into Pat Buchanan's assets to be easily found by the FBI in order to further incriminate him on their elaborate scheme. Although some in the USSR wonder if it's viable to keep Buchanan operations going like this, but they are convinced by how funny it is, and as well as how paranoid they feel the Americans will be by the fact that Pat Buchanan is a communist. As Buchanan continues to deny all allegations, the Soviets tell the FBI they will bring Buchanan back by force if necessary, as a Spetsnaz group is being mobilized. The hardliners also offer all political prisoners imprisoned in a trade deal for Agent Pat Buchanan to come back to the USSR. The United States agrees to this extraordinary deal, where Buchanan is forced to the Soviet Union, kicking and screaming, and once in the USSR, Buchanan is imprisoned in Siberia with Prison Mike. The Soviet Union has now been preserved, with Agent Pat Buchanan brought back to the USSR, but now the Soviets don't know who to troll next. That's of course just one possible scenario. What do you think would have happened had the Soviet Union never fell on the date this video was posted? Let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching.